Hey, thank you all for joining today's session. I'm Rajesh. I'm the founder of CodePup AI. Prior to CodePup AI, I have been product manager at some companies like Flipkart, Walmart, and Zynga, pretty much operating large-scale products at a huge scale of users and revenue and other things, right? So I do conduct a lot of sessions on Maven, a lot of lightning sessions. A lightning session every weekend. And I also have a cohort that is running, which is on AI coding. Okay. There are multiple ways to engage also. So I publish a lot of free content on YouTube as well. So it depends on where you want to consume, how you want to consume. Okay. All right. So today we are going to cover cloning a website. It's part of the overall learning of Claude Code, right? So there are a lot of things that you can do using Claude Code. Cloning a website is one of them. Imagine you're trying to build a small prototype for your companies, right? All of us work in very good organizations. And we also, as a founders, we also want to build something very polished, right? When you go to a vibe coding tool, let's say Lovable or CodePup AI or any other platform and try to build something for yourself, it often turns out to be an AI slop, right? There are a lot of violet colors that come in. It doesn't match your brand's theme, right? Especially if you're working in a company and you display that to one of your, engineers, they probably will laugh at you, right? So they'll say, hey, this is just a prototype. We can't really work around this, right? But as product managers, what we want is speed, right? We need speed of execution. We have a lot of features to be shipped in our backlog. And if there's a magic wand that we can just wave off and build features, at least a minimal feature that gets us to a lot of early feedback, right? So we can ship it, we can launch it, get a lot of early feedback. If the early response is good enough, then you put engineers behind it and probably scale it, right? So that's what a lot of companies are moving towards. And there is huge demand for product managers who can actually ship some of these, right? So we are seeing a huge spike in terms of demand for these kind of PMs as well. All right. So let's jump in. I am going to do two things today. So I believe in hands-on approach, where I believe every PM should become a builder and start experimenting more and more. So I'll walk you through a presentation just to understand the nuances. It's also important to understand the concepts of why we do what we do. So I'm going to walk you through a small presentation, not boring one, a simple one, and we'll go through a hands-on. So I'll try to clone a website live. This is a long-running process. It's more like an AI that we'll run, an AI agent that we run, which builds a website, it verifies and validates some of the steps, and it goes on a loop till it figures out a perfect combination. So it's a long running job. It runs for half an hour. So I'm not sure if it will complete during the session, but I'll at least it'll give you a flavor in terms of how I build or how I clone a website, right? And I'll also show you some samples of websites I have cloned so that you get a taste of what I have built. All right, so let's get in. Okay, there you go. So what I've done is there are multiple ways to clone a website or follow your brand guidelines. One way is obviously one simple way that a lot of people do is take a screenshot of your website, put it into Claude or any other tool. It'll try to follow some basic guidelines, right? It'll understand whatever it could from the image that you're given, probably color palettes to a decent level. Might not be fonts. Fonts are pretty different. It will not understand spacing. It will not understand the concept of responsiveness, how the website looks in different channels or different form factors. So there are a lot of things it would miss when you just punch in a screenshot into Claude or any other whiteboarding tool and want to clone a website or follow similar patterns, right? So if I have to rate it, it's probably the least possible way. I mean, it's probably 20% complete in terms of website replication. The second part, how you can follow a brand guideline is Figma MCP, right? So if you are in a company, you can go to your designer, you can ask them for their Figma files. Typically, as we know, UX designers store all the component libraries within the Figma. And what it typically constitutes is what are the fonts I use, the colors I use, and more importantly, the content library, component library, right? And what does a component library mean? So if you go to this particular website, you see a lot of these buttons over here. There is a button with a dark background, light background. How do the cards look? What is the spacing? How do the logos come, right? Which pictures to use? what are the icons that we use. So each and every component that you see, the name, the heading, the navbar, all of these are reusable components which a company sort of tries to use again and again, right? So a component library is generally stored in a Figma file, which you can get from your designer. And Figma MCP is also pretty good. So you can use Figma MCP to sort of follow those guidelines and recreate some pages or websites that you want to create, right? That's second way of doing it. And it's pixel perfect, right? Because Figma has a lot of details. What I'm going to show today is, let's say you don't have a Figma file, you don't know what that website is, you're just browsing some websites, you found some website pretty interesting, right? Let's say I found Superbase website pretty interesting, right? I use this website quite a lot, so this is not a best possible example, but I'll just use it to show a small demo, right? I found this website. The UX looks pretty neat, pretty clean. I want to probably reuse these particular components or create my own website as a very close replica of this particular website, right? And what I mean by that is, tadam, tadam. Okay, so we are going to look at website cloning using a public URL, right? Now, what does it do? You give a simple reference URL and I have created a small skill. We'll use a skill. The skill will run and extract all the details and get the high fidelity output for you, right? It'll clone a website for you. Now, how does this work, right? So it all sounds cool, but as PMs, we also have to understand how this works internally, right? So it's a five-phase workflow. What I do within a skill, it will look like things are moving dynamically when I run the demo. But for you, it's good to understand that it is a five-phase workflow. Phase one is about reconciliation. We capture each and every detail from the website, right? So I have a Chrome MCP server which actually opens it in a separate browser. It captures all the details from the website that we can. Typically, website details are stored in their DOM and the screenshots. Beyond screenshots, I think if you go into DOM level, right? So there's a way in which the website is rendering in your particular front end, and that's how you're able to see. So a lot of details that you can see when you do an inspect element on a particular website, right? So my Chrome MCP server actually goes to each and every website. It tries to get all those details, trying to figure out a lot of different things, right? We'll go into what those different things are as well. Then it will put all those different things into a design document, right? Nowadays, people are coining fancy terms like design token.md. And what does it mean? In a plain, simple, vanilla English word, English sentence, it's all about giving some guidelines to your LLM about how your website is structured. Given I don't have a Figma file, you can think of it as a mini Figma file that we give to Claude to follow some guidelines for us, right? And then my skill basically goes build this entire website for me because now I got reconciliation. I know exactly what the website has got. I have created a design document, which is like a Figma file for my Claude Code. And now it will go and build it. Once it builds it, I have got some validation rules, right? So can I put these websites side by side and compare them and see if they match pixel perfect, right? When I say pixel perfect, I didn't want to over engineer. So what I did is it'll figure out what are different sections within a particular page. It'll try to compare each of those sections and see if these are good, bad, or ugly, right? And if it is bad or ugly, it'll try to run a loop. It'll try to fix some of those, retest again, and this loop will continue till these become almost pixel perfect. Okay. And finally, it also checks for responsiveness. Okay, it's looking good on my form factor, which is website, which is my laptop. But if I look at mobile or tablet or some other form factors, how does it look, right? So it iterates for those versions as well. Okay. Great. So we talked about these. So how does Recon work? It takes multiple screenshots. It looks at your DOM, which is inspect element. When you go to a browser and do an inspect element, a lot of hidden details out there. Not really hidden, public details out there. So you try to get those. It tries to create an asset inventory. So whatever you see in this particular page, so all these are images, icons, or SVGs in some form or the other. If you had just taken a screenshot, Claude will try to recreate some of these icons and images for you, and it will fail miserably, right? So instead of doing that, the particular skill that I'm going to show you is going to collect the entire asset inventory so that we can replicate them or reuse them as is, right? And then finally, responsive snapshots, as we discussed, in different form factors, right? Now, what does a design token mean? A design token is typically, as you said, it's a replacement for Figma because we're trying to extract a lot of information from a public file. It basically looks at your, I mean, this is a simple identification for you. There are much more things beyond just colors and other things. But just in a layman's world, it's more about in a PM's world, because we're not designers, right? In a PM's or a business person's world, it's all about what are the color patterns, what are the typographies that it is using, what are the fonts, what are the sizes, titles, headings, subtitle, like what's going on over there, what are the different borders used, the spacings, the margins, right? And also some element of animations if we can, right? So there are a lot of interesting things beyond just these. It tries to sort of extract all that information from your front end and create a component library for us to go through, right? So we get the design and then we will build and validate across multiple checkpoints within using our skill set, right? Great. I think we discussed a lot. I'll share this deck with you. Probably you can go through it later. But let's jump into the quick demo, right? So great. Got my Claude running. I already have open sourced my base template. So there's a link to my base template. I think if you guys are new to Claude and try to spin up something real quick, you can go to Rajesh shares and there's a Claude Code file. I'll share this link also post the meeting. You can use this as a base template. It'll help you get started pretty fast, right? I've just cloned my base template and just some basics. So I have already run my init. So if you look at my memory file, so this is basically a simple front-end file using ShadCN and other components. And this talks about some basic elements of my template structure, right? So this is the best practice, right? So whenever you start a session in Claude or import any project in Claude, you sort of init slash init and sorts of creates a basic structure for you. Okay. All right. I'll take the questions at the end probably just to continue the entire demo. Please keep punching in your questions in the chat. I'll go through all of them at the end. All right. Let's do this, right? So clone home page of, let's go here. I'll pick Supabase for the lack of my creativity. Product managers, clone homepage of this thing using slash clone. So again, I gave you all the theory because what I've done is I have gone through a lot of iterations and I've created a skill for myself. And the skill follows this specific workflow, right? So let's see what it does. Okay. So what I also do is this is a long running process. So I generally give Claude the entire permissions to run this dangerously with all permissions. I go have my lunch, dinner, and come back. By the time I come back within half an hour, the website is ready, right? But since this is a demo and this is for educational purpose, let's go through what it's trying to do, right? So look, as I told you, this is triggering my MCP server. It wants to go to supabase.com, figure out what this website is, right? Let's go. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, it opened a separate browser and then it's trying to browse Supabase. It's slightly annoying because it'll keep asking for some permissions and I have to swap the screens again and again. But that's okay. Okay, let's go. So I try to take a full page image of what Supabase website is, right? Just to get a small context of what Supabase really means. That's just a starting step. Then it'll run some scripts. It'll try to extract all the DOM elements as we discussed earlier, trying to create a token or a design token system for itself, trying to figure out what those fonts are, what the color palettes are, what the typography is, right? So check this, right? This is exactly what we discussed. It's trying to reconcile what the Supabase website is. It is taking screenshots of different sections. As you can see, section 1, it's storing all this information within my folder. So maybe afterwards, I can also show you what that folder is. And what are the screenshots it saved, right? So it got image. So what did it do? It first extracted a full image of the website. Now it's trying to figure out, okay, what are the sections within that particular page? And it's trying to dig deeper. It's trying to zoom in, right? Let me take a screen. Let me see how this section looks. Let me see what is the image of this particular section? What are the different details of this section? What are the different components within the section? And it's trying to extract all that information, right? So it's scrolling up and down. It's doing a lot of things. In fact, if I had done this in allow permissions dangerously, you could have seen Claude actually browsing that particular page. But that's okay. If I had done that, I couldn't show this for you. All right. So it went till section 4. Great. So it got the image of section 4. And as you can see, it's trying to run a script. And the script tries to get all the DOM elements, right? Which are basically all your finer details, which are required to reconstruct this particular section. All right, so section 5, it's now going to section 6. Yeah, we got some time. We'll let it run for, I think it generally takes, for the entire process to complete, takes around half an hour. But I think the first iteration should be complete in 5 to 10 minutes. Probably we'll take a look at what happens after 5 to 10 minutes, just to get an understanding of where it went. And then we'll open up for questions. Okay. Okay, it's going to section 6. All right, so we're almost done. It went to section 6, which is this, and then it will take the footer. See, it browsed to the footer section, and now it's taking the free screenshot of the footer. It'll ask me some permission. Oh no, it doesn't this time, which is good. Right, now it has all the sections. Great. Go for it, boss. So it got some basic details from the website. And now it wants all those finer details, right? If there are any small minor animations within the component, if there are some other fine-grained details that it's missing. So it's trying to run the script to extract almost all the information from whatever it could, right? So let's see, it better be good. So we are currently in 3 minutes. Look at this, right? So we are currently in 3 minutes and in phase one. And this is how you generally run these auto systems, right? So imagine if I had to get this website done from a vendor, this could have cost me a bomb. So look, there's a script that it ran, it's trying to get a lot of information from your website, right? If I had given this outsources to a developer, probably to emulate a very big website like Stripe or Shopify or other websites, at a super premium quality, they will charge me a bomb, $2K to be very minimum for a high-end website, right? And now we have run an automation loop where the AI is acting as a UX designer, the AI is acting as the validator, and the AI is also acting as a tester, right? And we have sort of smartly coupled them into a very fine-grained loop so that the AI does all the hard work for us and comes back with a final output. This is good, but also there are some drawbacks, right? So if you look at this session will actually run for half an hour, right? To complete all the 5 steps. Now, what does it mean to run a half an hour session and let the AI run on its own? It's going to consume a lot of tokens. I am on Claude Max plan, so I could afford it. Like even if I run this entire session, probably it barely consumes 3% of my, I'm on $200 plan, so it's very huge. It barely consumes 2 or 3% of my session limits I mean, session limits for next 4 hours. So not too bad if I can get this done within half an hour and the website looks at super high quality, right? So that's one drawback, definitely. You're using an MCP server of Chrome, which is doing a lot of things. It is consuming a lot of tokens. It's trying to get every screenshot, every script, a lot of different details. So it's going to burn a lot of tokens. So that's one drawback that you need to be aware of. All right. So while it runs, let me take a few questions. You guys can drop in the chat box if you have any questions. More than happy to take. So Srinivas says, are you using Chrome plugin for this, which was developed from Claude Code? Yes, I'm using the Chrome MCP server directly from their marketplace. I generally don't prefer using MCP servers of unknown providers because they are highly risky. and you have to be really cognizant about which MCP servers you use. I generally don't even use MCP servers because in this case it is Chrome and I needed an automation on the browser side. I'm forced to use this. But I am generally a big fan of CLI. So, I mean, people who have some of my students in my cohort will see that I generally give access to Supabase CLI or Stripe CLI or any other CLIs that are available so that Claude can directly run some CLI commands for me. But in this case, because it is Chrome and it is coming from Claude Code ecosystem, so I'm okay. So I'm running this MCP server. Okay, Srinivas, again, is it good to start with a design system of our own to start building websites with our preferences and brand preferences and CSS styling guidelines? Yes, I mean, so if you have it, Srinivas, I think that's much better. As I said earlier, probably Figma file if you have and run it via Figma MCP is probably the best possible way. But again, a lot of other product managers, we might not have the Figma, we might not have those brand guidelines. But if you're an organization, you should definitely bug your designer to hand over the Figma files to you so that you can start using them in your own designs. And so that your website looks very much like your company's. Okay. Folks, please feel free to punch in any other questions that you have. By the way, over here, I can see now that it's writing a very detailed design.md file. Okay, so what is, let's see how it looks. Okay, so here is a design.md file, right? Now, if you look at this is almost all the details that you have in a Figma, but in a text format or in a markdown format, right? So what do we have here? So it says here are the color patterns, right? Viewport, and it's generally a default viewport for everyone. It talks about, look at this padding, where is it centered, what is the max width, pretty much everything that Claude needs, right? What are the color patterns? So these are the different color patterns used in the application that we see. This goes into pure designer territory, right? It's more about how green is green, right? So for PMs probably it doesn't matter much, but apparently this particular website had so many different colors, right? It's cool that AI could do this job for me. I could never come up with these many colors. So there are card borders, there are sign in button is in different color, the links are in different color, the accent colors are different. So that's why it loaded up to so many different colors. Then if you look at typography, right? So there are different types of typographies used throughout. So all that is captured. What is a layout grid? So when I say components within a website or within a section, these are the components, right? So a layout grid is, of this particular format, and probably anywhere I use a layout grid again, I can use the same things, right? Great. So it has got definition of sticky. I'm in the hero section. There is a bento grid where they list the different types of products. So all the sections, right? Individual sections, what do they mean? How do they work? So it has also captured a couple of effects like, motion effects. It cannot really realistically capture all the animations. That's really impossible because animations are inbuilt or inline written within the code of the website. So that is very difficult to capture or, impossible to capture. But, I think it did a decent job in capturing a lot of other information. So let's see what it does. Okay, it's building the clone now. Okay, Srinivas asks local MCP server configuring all MCP definitions there and not on Claude JSON files, which can act as a router for OpenAI Gemini as well. Your thoughts on that? So Srinivas, I'm a power user on Claude. I haven't used much of OpenAI and Gemini. But if you do juggle across multiple tools, then probably that makes sense. But again, I predominantly like 99% of my work is on Claude Code. Probably OpenAI I do use, but on ChatGPT on the web version. I use Cowork to an extent from Claude. Gemini, I use a lot of image models, right? So from Gemini AI Studio, I do create a lot of images and also via other SDKs and APIs. But my primary go-to coding tool is Claude. So I didn't experiment much on that front. Okay, all right. So it's trying to clone the website. Let us see. Okay, it's still in first page. But while it does that, let me also show you a couple of other websites that I've built using this, right? So as you see, this is running in my local. I was very ambitious. I tried to clone Clerk. Clerk is a authentication platform which a lot of people use for. authentication of their users. So this is how Clerk looks, right? So if you look at a hero section with some small background gradients or background geometric shapes, then there are a couple of logos here. If you go down, scroll down, look at this, there is some animation going on here. And then, so some of these are cool in Clerk, right? So if you look at this, these animations are super cool. These are some things which your AI cannot replicate because these are inline code, which is like hard coded within their code base. So our front end doesn't have access to some of these, right? And then there is a subscription billing section, there is SDK section. These are all animations, right? So our clone will not be able to capture these animations, but it did capture some of the other details around this. And then there is a section of user testimonials, and finally there is a footer, right? So this is our clone, right? If you look at this, the animation on the cards was slightly different. We could not capture that. We could not capture the background geometrical shapes here. We did do a slide geometry if you zoom in and see, but not exactly. But that's okay. I think as product managers, we gotten far enough. This is a clerk component section. So section is perfectly the same. We saw some animations over there in clerk, which obviously we could not replicate, but this looks slightly off. But again, this was one-shotted within half an hour. Claude ran multiple loops and created this for me. I never repeated my prompts or tried to correct this. But I'm sure if I run through small 2, 3 simple commands, this should be fixed. And this is exactly what I was talking about, right? Some of the animations that were there in this card, it tried to do a small job, but could not replicate completely. So, but again, so what it created is truly amazing out of the box in a single shot, right? Blah 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 blah. So even here, right? So animations did not come, but a lot of icons, other properties got pretty well. So this testimonial session perfectly similar, right? And the next LinkedIn footer. And you can see that the content is also exactly the same. So that was one site that I replicated. The other site I tried to replicate was 11 Labs, right? Again, it did a very good job in terms of getting all the information. There were some animations that obviously it could not collect, but decently good job. So two platforms built on same, all the content is the same, the text is the same, the gradients, the color patterns of the creamish color. Yeah, and then a lot of these sections, their images, a couple of these sections just above the footer. Yeah, pretty interesting. And these two, it ran a loop for approximately half an hour before it could actually build my site, right? All right, it did build something. Okay. All right, let's go. Okay, cool. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to punch in your chat. And by the way, our next AI cohort is starting next month. That's on the AI coding. We go pretty deep into Claude Code and different workshops. So feel free to evaluate some of those, after this particular session. We are going to do a lot of hands-on sessions, building a lot of applications in those particular sessions. So will be pretty interesting. All right. So no, I've got some other dev server running here. Let me kill that first. Kill dev servers. Can it clone e-commerce sites like Amazon or Adidas? Interactions as product compare, add to basket, and such. Yeah, it should be able to do. I think so. I have cloned the homepage. Pretty much homepage is the most complex one. But if it can do homepage, it can do a lot of other things. See, the key here, Sahil, is trying to let AI build the design token file. So once you build the token file well enough, then you can build any feature on top of it, right? So it need not scrape the website exactly for how the compare works or how a couple of things work. As long as I have the right components and I know exactly the design system to rebuild that particular page, I'm more than good enough to, I mean, Claude can rebuild the page for you. So to answer your question, let's say if I have the component library with me, which I've scraped other pages and got the component library, you can consume less tokens and recreate some of the additional pages as well. Okay. But if you want your MCP server to actually go and walk through some of those pages and recreate exactly that way, you can also do that. But obviously, it is going to consume a lot of tokens. Okay. Let me close this. Mm, Great. Thanks, Sahil. Any other questions, folks? Oh, wow. This is a site it created. Not too bad. So this is built in a weekend, scale to millions. These are all the logos that it got. Again, I think as I'm browsing Claude, okay, let me copy this in a separate browser. I don't want to interfere with what my MCP server is trying to do. Great. So this is a website it created. So if you see, like every text looks the same, all the fonts, color patterns. There's a second section that it has built, Postgres database, authentication, all these features available on Supabase. And then the third section, which is more about frameworks for Supabase, start building in seconds, a lot of different frameworks available. It also replicated some of the tables and images out here, join the community, right? Cool, pretty neat. And the footer as well, right? Maybe it overflew this particular element. How does it look on Supabase? Okay, let's see. Okay. So I think it just it should have fitted it in here. It sort of overflew. But I think these can be fixable in subsequent prompts. But otherwise, pretty neat job. All right. So have you defined a set of instructions and phrases how Claude Code should produce a design specs? Yes, Srinivas. I think that's exactly why what we talked about, right? So I created a clone my website skill, as you can see. So this is my clone my website skill, clone website skill that I created. And this goes through this 5-step process, right? It gets all the data from the website. Goes to the URL browsers and gets all the data. It creates a design doc. It tries to clone the website, then it validates, and then finally it gives a handoff to the end user, right? So as you can see, now it has built the website. Now it's trying to validate section by section how it works. So most likely it might fix a footer after the validation is done, right? But let's see. All right, cool. Any other questions, folks? I'll share the base template and couple of the PPT as well post the session. So you guys should try it out. You guys should try it out, try to create your own skill, see how it works, how it responds. So, okay. So it gives a handover to me. Okay. With security row. Okay. I don't think it fixed the footer, but let me do check once. I'll refresh. Okay. I didn't fix the footer, but that's okay. Typically, what I've observed is there are a lot of places where the alignments were wrong in the first iteration. So it goes pretty deep in the second and third iteration. Some of those iterations went to 3 or 4 iterations before it finally fixes it, right? So in this case, I think it mixed the footer, but rest of the sections look really neat. All right, cool. Any final questions, folks, before we wrap up? Is it suggested to use different AI tools for prototyping, code deployment for PMs? Um, Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you are trying to build. So if you are building so if you are not typically, see, I would recommend all PMs to get hands-on Claude Code or Codex or anti-gravity, whichever suits you. but go deep, right? You can start with Lovable or CodePub so that you prompt and see some things happening automatically. But it's not so difficult for PMs to actually jump into Claude Code, right? So, hey guys, no spamming, please. Whoever this is trying to spam here. So, I would say try to master Claude Code or some of the AI coding tools, and inadvertently you will go through a lot of other tools in the process. You'll try to connect a lot of them together. You'll try to see how those works, etc. Okay. But so, for example, for deployment, you can use Vercel, Netlify, and other tools. For backend, you need to use Supabase, or a couple of other databases available out there. So you anyways need to connect a lot of these systems for your application to build and deploy your applications. I've got a good series on this, so you can check out here. So there is a channel called Skill Agents AI that I run. We have done some basic explainer videos over there, so you can also check those out. All right, cool. Any other final question, guys, before we wrap up? Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for being lovely audience. Please feel free to drop a note even after the session. I'm available. You can get my details from the profile section. All right. See you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.